Okay, so yesterday, as we were ending the class, we started with this regarding the concept of sweeping the floor, and we said that it was to prevent harm to insects and microorganisms. So we said that the brooms, it is not this kind of a broom, but it is a broom made with soft fibers, and generally they use this to kind of sweep the area in front of them as they walk. And as it is said, it is to prevent them from stepping on ants or small creatures or insects and causing harm or death to them. Next is mindfulness. So we see that when you are doing some activity, you have to be fully alert and awake. So in a way, this practice of kind of sweeping, in a way, helps the monks and the nuns to be fully present to each moment. So they are fully in the present, and therefore they pay close attention to what they are doing, and their every move they are aware of their every move. And also, in a way, this is a kind of a respect for all life forms. Okay, so next also, by sweeping the floor, they reinforce their commitment to non-attachment and non-possession. And therefore, for them, it is to consider that even though it is a small act of sweeping the floor, yet it is important in the context of spiritual purity. Okay, so everything is to be done with great reverence, with great importance. Next, now we may ask who practices these disciplines, right? Because if you are an ordinary lay person, how will you practice it? Okay, if you are going to office, are you going to carry the broom and go? These may be the question. So let's try to see what happens. So for the monks and the nuns, we see that they practice it fully. Okay, and this is part of their rigorous discipline . Okay, and therefore we see that they are fully, in a way, committed to this practice. Now when it comes to the lay persons, now they are not expected to live with the same level of ascetic discipline. So they are encouraged to follow the principles of non-violence, of being careful in their own ways, such as being vegetarian, avoiding harm to animals, and following ethical conduct. But as we already said last time, there are certain exceptions. For example, if something happens, okay, so they'll take the steps to prevent it. But if something happens, well, it cannot be avoided. So for them, the practices are there, but the intensity is less. So the strictness is less. It is not as fully hard and committed as we have for the monks and the nuns. Now next we have another very important or interesting practice that is followed, and that is of Kesh Lochan. So that, no, this is in general now. So we are dealing with.
The sweeping was general or Satambra? Sweeping on the floor. That was a general thing?
It's a general thing. So when we speak about this kind of a practice, we see that it is a symbol of renunciation. So basically the hair of the women is kind of plucked, okay, in this practice. Now it is a symbol of renunciation because by plucking the hair, they symbolize detachment from physical beauty and also personal vanity, which are seen as obstacles for their spiritual development or obstacles for their spiritual progress. It is also seen as a form of asceticism. Okay, so though it is a very painful process, okay, that physical pain, okay, so the physical pain that is endured is a way to cultivate inner strength. It is therefore very painful, and also it is a way to cultivate inner strength. And also in a way this aligns with what you call as self control and their rigorous discipline. Now when it comes to this particular practice, okay, there is a bit of a difference among the sects, okay. So we see that it is more common among the Digambara nuns, okay, because they are the ones who strictly follow this kind of a ritual. But it is said that it is not universally practiced among all the sects. Okay, so there may be variations in the sects, but it may not be followed universally. Now, for example, in the Shvetambara sect, we see that they may cut the hair short instead of plucking. So in a way, as we have already seen, it's a more kind of a relaxed form, or a more what we call as a reformed form. So instead of plucking, they prefer in cutting the hair short. Now, this also practice is supposed to have, in a way, performed periodically. So, okay, now how often, as the question was asked, we see that it is either performed during significant ceremonies or after the vow of renunciation. So in a way, it is not to be viewed as an everyday practice. How every month we go for a haircut, it is not supposed to be seen like that. But this is supposed to be seen as a ritual which has deep spiritual significance. So when there is something important that is happening in their lives, okay, so as the vow of renunciation, or for example, even in our lives, when there are major events, okay, in the formation, it is similarly like that. When they have major events or major ceremonies, this ceremony or this ritual is performed. Now, what is their attitude towards death? Okay, now we see that in Jainism, death is something that is seen as natural and acceptable. Okay, and it is seen as a natural part of the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. And therefore, it is seen as an opportunity for the soul to be freed from the cycle of rebirth if the person has, in a way, lived a life of virtue and renunciation. Now, it is also said to be a peaceful transition. So, they also emphasize the importance of a calm or serene environment. Now, it is also said that sometimes you have something called as a voluntary fast unto death. Okay? And this is practiced by some devout Jains. So, why do they do this? Okay, so some of them, when they feel that their life is nearing death, so they prepare, or they have this wish to prepare the soul for liberation, and they do this by renouncing all attachments, including water and food. So this is a spiritual practice. This is not to be confused or misunderstood as a suicide. Okay, it's very important not to consider this as a suicide, but it is an act of spiritual purification as well as detachment. So this is generally the person in a way decides, he discerns well in a way, and often spiritual guidance is taken from a Jain monk or nun. Okay, so it is done under the guidance of a Jain monk or nun. So what do they do? So what are the rituals done when a person is undertaking this voluntary fast unto death. So first and foremost, they may recite prayers, or they may meditate, or they may engage in spiritual reflection, reflecting on the scriptures or some other important aspect of their life. So, how do the family members support? Okay, so the family will support by creating a peaceful environment. So they also recite scriptures, and in a way they avoid disturbing the person. So they also will not show any emotions, okay, in order to prevent the person from getting distracted from what he has intended to do. Okay, so though it may be painful for them, they may not openly show that feeling or sentiments. Let's take a look at some of the deathbed rituals. So now this is coming to the back again to the normal death scenario. Okay, so what happens is, as the death approaches, okay, the family members will recite scriptures, okay, or a Jain monk will recite verses of the scriptures, and this is to help the dying person to keep spiritual focus. So the dying person in a way is encouraged to keep meditation and pray. Why? So that he should be focused on the soul's liberation. And also the environment is kept very simple. You have a very simple environment. So the main purpose of this is not to distract the person who is on the deathbed. So after dying, what happens? Let's have a look at that. Okay, so we see that they follow immediate cremation. So there is a preference of cremation over burial. Okay, so as the reason that they give is, it is a quick release of the soul from the bodily ties. So generally they would cremate within 24 hours. So quick release of the soul in the sense that they say that with cremation the soul is released from the body so that it can either go into the next life or it can be liberated completely, depending on the person's renunciation and spiritual practice. So another important reason why they cremate is also because of their whole focus on non-violence. Because if they are buried, it can also cause harm to other living beings, microorganisms, etc. Okay, so in that way they prefer cremation, and Cremation is also associated with maintaining spiritual purity, as the body is quickly reduced to ashes, preventing any attachment to the physical form. So it's a quick process also, and in the way it is quite simple. Now we see that the body is handled with great care and respect during this whole process, okay? We see that, and the rituals are very simple, and this emphasizes the whole principle of non-attachment. So after cremation, the ashes that are collected, okay, it may be immersed in a river, but again this is done without any elaborate ceremony or elaborate function. Okay, and we also see that there is the mourning period is generally quite brief. Okay, since they believe in that the person will have a next life or it will be liberated, so the mourning is generally brief and excessive display of grief. So that means the crying or having that sadness for a long period of time is not encouraged. Also, we see that during this time, the members may engage in acts of charity, such as donating food, money or clothing to the needy. And this is seen as a way of generating positive karma for the soul. Just as in Christianity we have the practice of offering masses for the soul, similarly acts of charity are done in order to attract some positive karma to the soul. Some communities may hold a memorial service where scriptures are read and where the life of the person is remembered, okay, with a focus on their spiritual achievements, but it is not a universal fact. Now let's come to a few questions that came up yesterday. Okay, so one of the questions that came up was, in the Digambaras, okay, which is an interesting fact, when it comes to liberation, a woman has to be born as a man and only then can be liberated. Okay, whereas in Shwetambaras, it is okay for both. Now, why is this reason? So, after doing a bit of research, found out that when it comes to the women in Digambaras, they are not fully naked in the sense, okay, and as a result of it, they are considered as second class in that way, and therefore they have to be born as men in order to get attained. So answering the question. Next, there was the whole question about which sect came first, right? So now we see that there is a bit of a debate, okay, there is a bit of a historical debate regarding the division between Shwetambaras and Digambaras. So now, during the lifetime of Mahavira, there was this division did not exist. Okay, so the split is said to have occurred centuries after his death, after Mahavira's death. So roughly around 3rd or 4th century BCE. Though some scholars also suggest it can be around 1st century CE. So there is a bit of a debate with regards to this. Now, what are the theories? One is geographical division. Okay, so this theory suggests that the division occurred due to geographical separation. That means the Jain community spread across different regions, and this led to variations in practice and different interpretations of the teaching. And over a period of time, these variations solidified into sects. Another theory is that of famine and migration. So there was a great famine that struck the Jain community, and during the 12th year of famine, so again this is just tradition, during the 12th year of famine it is said that a group of Jains, migrated to Karnataka. They migrated south to Karnataka, whereas the other group remained on top. The southern group, later became the Digambaras, adopted a more austere practice, whereas the northern group maintained different, slightly less austere practices. Okay, so this is with regards to our course on Jainism.